That is good to know. Hello and welcome back to Cairncast. We are on a roll. The timer is running out of battery, but don't worry, we've got one here. So we're going to keep to a strict script. Almost got that wrong. I'm Robi, and
I'm Hannah. Hello.
Basically, we only want people who rhyme with Anna on the podcast. Hannah,
which
Anna,
makes sense.
and other Hannah. So if you have a name like Banana, then come and join me on the podcast. Just getting a weird tangent. Here we are. We've got a rotating, revolving door of guests. So do you want to explain to the listeners
who I am?
You are and how you are a much more successful podcaster than I am?
Well, I'm Hannah. As stated, rhymes with Anna.
And banana.
And banana. And I am currently the shop supervisor at Melville, one of our venues, one of Cairngorm's venues. And I did used to have a podcast. A pop culture podcast, which it was like, I don't know if you can say it was like I'm a successful podcaster. I really don't think you can say
but you said it, huh?
No, it's what you said.
No, you said that.
No,
you just uttered those words. So
no, I think because you say anyway. I'm not a successful podcaster.
Congratulations.
Please don't quote me on that. But I have had a podcast in the past.
With digital images as well.
There was video and clips. We had a TikTok.
Oh my days.
So you can go and listen to me. I'm sure you're going to be desperate.
Will you reshare this on your...
Well, it's dormant now, so...
we need all the followers we can get.
I'll do... anyone who listened to my old podcast, I'll say, come and listen to me talk about coffee in this
That's
one.
That's a done deal. It's on the podcast.
It's a very different topic, like different subject matter, but... Here we are. So
brings us on to our subject matter today, which is quite coffee orientated, but is an interesting one for both of us. I mean, I sit across both cafe and roastery environment, but a lot of the conversations I tend to have is in the roastery, talking about like, how we can make experiences unique for wholesale customers or but you obviously bring another edge to that, which is more from the cafe side of things. So I guess what I want to discuss today is what can we do in the cafe environment to offer a more unique experience. It's absolutely blowing a gale outside, which is quite distracting.
Kind of ASMR vibes with like rain on the roof.
So apologies about that. Quite cool. I was the first person in Scotland to listen to ASMR.
No, you weren't.
I swear.
What do you mean?
Before this is a mass tangent again. Before it even had a name, I think I used to get tingles, and I would like research. Just on YouTube, like people talking with like Shetland accent, because I used to find Shetland accents
that's
and they
so
didn't exist.
funny.
And then I eventually found someone like 10 years ago that and it was called ASMR, and I was like,
so you invented ASMR?
I basically invented
in Scotland.
ASMR. But
that's so funny. You like discovered. Wow.
It was very not like. There's a lot of jokiness about what I'm saying here. I didn't invent ASMR.
I think you did.
Discover it.
No, I think you did.
But it's always been a
claim.
little bit like cringy. Like I've said to friends when I've had a few drinks, like, is everyone listen to ASMR? And they've been like, what are you talking about? And
that's a weird thing to like. I think like as a group, do you all really want to be watching ASMR?
Well, I've
videos?
brought it out at the dinner table, like videos, and they're like, you've literally lost the plot.
Weird.
And I do get like it's quite different in the context or with friends after a few beers. Presenting ASMR to them is a bit different than headphones on, working.
It also depends this is such a tangent, but it really does depend on the ASMR, because I feel like there's like, everyone has different interests. Like I like ones when there's nail tapping involved. But the ones where like it's like role playing and people whispering into the camera, that gives me not good vibes.
I'm paranoid that my wife's going to walk in when I'm watching something like that. That's so weird, isn't it?
It's very odd.
But there's a real trend where, like, it's become. I know this is ridiculous. It's become more sultry almost. Anyway,
it has. Anyway,
this is getting ridiculous.
So hopefully this gives you ASMR vibes with the like rain on a tin roof.
What's the ASMR equivalent in a cafe? What gives people tingles?
Definitely, so like I know when I occasionally have long nails, and like we have iPads that we take orders on, so a bit of tapping on the iPad. I think like even maybe some milk steaming sounds. There's often people tapping on their computers.
Someone running their hands through the coffee beans.
Yeah, you could. Maybe we should make an ASMR channel for Cairngorm.
That's maybe what we should. That would probably get us more hits.
Yep.
Here we go.
Let's make an ASMR video.
Cairngorm ASMR.
Jack, you can come to the venue and we'll do it together. I'm very.
Here we go.
Should we start the topic?
Yes. Well, let's go back. We've got 15 minutes now. We're chewing through it.
Power through.
Yeah, I guess I'm intrigued, especially your background, obviously, in case you hadn't noticed.
As a really successful podcaster.
Podcast, but also Australian, I was going to say.
Yeah.
But you've worked in Proud Marys in Australia, which I'm always slightly fanboying over. But my experience on my honeymoon, we went to Proud Mary. Not the main reason we went to Melbourne, but Auntie Peg's, which I think is like their kind of experiential cafe environment.
Yeah.
It was extremely unique. Like it was something I'd never experienced before. If you haven't been, they have, and I don't know if they still do, but they had at this point, I know it's not necessarily the shop you worked in, but they had like grinders in a frozen chamber. And there was an
EK43 we had that at Proud Mary, like at the flagship store as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes. So you would run a grinder along a rail where there was like frozen hoppers in above it.
I think the way they did it was it was like 3 EKs would sit next to each other, and then the hopper was a frozen jar inside a freezer, and the EK just sat below the freezer.
So cool.
Very, very cool, because obviously it keeps the coffee super fresh.
Yeah.
But something that they actually, I think what Cairngorm, getting onto the topic, I guess, in terms of what specifically at Proud Mary they did, that I think Melville does well as well, is the idea of like creating a third space. And they recently did a video about this, but basically a third space is somewhere that people go that isn't work and that isn't home.
Yes.
Where they can go to have a sense of community.
That was like the Starbucks ammo, but we're not allowed to mention the word Starbucks now.
Yeah, well, but I think
they put sofas in, and it was like
But I think that's something that is like, I loved that about Proud Mary, and I think that's something I really enjoy about Melville as well, and it's something that I really try to foster, is that people come in and they do feel really welcome to like take a seat, chill out, talk to the staff, and it's very much like a space where people can come to be that isn't home or work. That's quite like just, I don't know, welcoming and chill. And obviously it's busy, but hopefully there's also that element to it. I
like that. And I mean, do you think that's is that unique though? I mean, that seems quite like there will be other cafes that all strive to, that's kind of their MO as well.
I think what Melville does well, and that I really strive for, is customer service being really like remembering people's names, being very like putting a lot of effort in with especially people who are coming back recurringly and making people feel really welcome. Like, I don't think everywhere does that. I think that is something that can be quite special for people, because I think you don't realize how much going and getting your coffee is like quite a big and important part of people's day. And if their name is remembered, or they get to have a chat to the barista whoever's serving them, I do think that makes quite you don't get that everywhere. I don't think, at least in my experience.
I completely agree. I think it was like one of our goals for starting the shop, which it seems absolutely mental. I've said it before, but like to have a USP, which is being nice to people, seems absurd.
No, but it's actually not that common.
Yeah,
like, it's not that common.
And specialty coffee in particular, quite a bad rap for a while.
Exactly.
You're trying to educate people. You're trying to like, which again, that was something we never wanted to engage in. There was a great comment on the last podcast we did. We were talking about 3 things, the questions we had for customers, and one of them was around the brand and like the appeal of the brand. And one of our customers says, I think the people are the brand. Again, repeating myself, but top service equals top branding, and other things, example packaging design, are just an added extra. And I love that, because I completely agree. And like, the brand is to them, it's like probably more than anything is the people. It's like they're the people. They are the vessel for carrying the brand and presenting the brand in a cafe environment specifically. That's extremely prevalent. It's easy to say the brand is more packaging design from a roaster standpoint, because you don't always get as much of a looking glass into the people behind a roastery. But in a cafe environment, it's like there's face-to-face.
It's really everything. Like, I think it changes it can really change someone's day. It can change someone's whole experience if they're the way that they're treated when they go in.
Yeah.
I think also just in terms of like Melville specifically with the space, like it is quite large. Even though it does get very busy, you can kind of sit, hang out for a while. It's laptop friendly, which I think is actually does set us apart from, aside from like, the big brand names, but a lot of cafes don't really like people using their computers. So I think that some do, but I
think it's widely the stand has been that is taken advantage of slightly, and like if they stay for too long. But I think we're very fortunate that our customers kind of get it. Like that makes it very easy for us.
There is so much seating and a high turnover at Melville that it just even if a handful of people do stay for a while, it's never really an issue because there's always space. So
someone commented on something years and years ago, and like it's funny the things you remember, just like little snapshots. But it really stuck with me. It was like talking in a WhatsApp group of like people that own cafes, and they was talking about like, do you allow laptops? One guy was like, it might have even been Sandro, who used to own Costello Coffee. I'm not sure, he no longer does. But whoever it was said, why would you not allow someone to use a laptop but be okay for them to read a book? I was like, yes, quite a good point. It's like, why just because it's on a screen? But I guess the majority of people would think that they would stay longer if they're working, and I kind of get that. But it is true. It's like we want people to come and feel comfortable and be able to like execute the reason for their visit like successfully without putting like rules on it. That makes it really like...
There really are very few rules about what people can and can't do at Melville, and I do think that gives people a sense of like ease and I think like you just said, I think the way that it's a roastery thing, but all of our coffees do have that color coding and there's a little chart next to the shelf. So I feel that when people come in and you are helping them to purchase something, it makes it really easy for people, and I don't think that there's not that kind of like gatekeeping of knowledge or people don't feel judged when they come in and they're not sure what they're buying. There's very much an attitude of like, how can I help you to get what you want? And that's something I think's really nice and hopefully sets us apart as well. So
good warm hospitality.
Yeah.
No, I agree, and I think that is probably one of our kind of it's not in our charter of like culture or anything, but certainly it feels inherent that we want people to feel welcomed and like.
What's the one service without reservation?
Service without, that's true. But
that's in it.
That does make sense. I guess it goes beyond. Like the openness of like making people comfortable it's beyond just like giving them good service. It's always like almost like you say, the color coding is trying to make things like simpler and easier for them to absorb so that they don't feel so uncomfortable. I think you want people to feel clear on like to understand how you're operating, so that it makes it easier. I think there are chains that do this extremely well, where it's like you can walk in and immediately understand the flow of the shop. And I think that's something I put a lot of emphasis on when we opened Melville, where it was like I knew where people were going to stand for their takeaways. I knew there was going to be enough space for that. I knew that it would be one flow. Like you would come in, you would order, you would walk out the same. Like I wanted it to not be too cross over. I think it's not perfect, but it's like
it's done pretty well though. Like out of all there's a lot of places I've worked, and it's hard to get right. Like a lot of places I've worked, people just come in and they don't know what to do. And to be fair to people, all cafes operate so differently. So often it might be table service or it's not, or like people don't know where to order and that kind of stuff. But generally, I think having a good layout where it's natural for people to know where to go, which I think Melville does well, I think is really good as well.
Nice. I was trying to think of like specific examples and this is like, it's not unique. I was giving you a hard time for saying something which isn't unique, but I'm like, all my things actually are not unique at all. Like there are a lot of places that do the things that I think are positive about Melville. I'm saying Melville specifically because that's your
where
domain.
I work,
But like the espresso menu vibe, that's something that, again, we try to make quite clean in that when you're ordering, it's kind of there, and it's hopefully engaging, but also it's not invasive to a point that you don't have to engage with it if you don't want. And I think we tried this quite heavily at Frederick Street for a while, where it was like, we wanted people to tell us, okay, I want this coffee, but actually I think, maybe what makes our approach now more unique is that it's kind of up to you to determine the experience you get. So if you want to get like a really exciting single origin coffee, it's presented and it's there. But equally, if you just want a flat white, we will know the coffee which will work best for your preference. So it's like, it's a kind of multifaceted service kind of dynamic, which I think is quite cool.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Do you want to move on to the next bit, or are we?
What's the next bit?
How do you keep the team?
That is another podcast.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I wrote notes for it. Never mind.
Yeah.
No, we're just on this all night. We're going to heaps of time. Okay, sorry.
We're going to do that podcast too. But
okay.
Yeah. Don't you worry.
I'm like, we've got to keep to time.
And you're going to be in it. You're going to be in it. So,
oh my God. Guys are going to hear me all the time. That's so exciting.
One thing I was thinking of, like, I guess that directly makes us, I think, have an element of edge, which again, I don't want this to be like Cairngorm's so great. Like,
we're so much
we're
better.
literally the best. But to be fair, there's a bit of propaganda here because it's our podcast, so we say what we want. But I think like we are fortunate purely in our heritage, essentially, that we started the brand 10 years ago, which whether you like it or not kind of gives you a little bit of an edge, because it's like
definitely
there are a lot of new cafes that open up, but it's like there are some cafes that have been around for a long time, like Fortitude, Artisan, Machina, Cult. Like these guys are like low down. It's like the kind of long-standing players of the coffee scene, which isn't unique either. But it's like it adds an element, I guess, where it's like I don't know. You think of so I guess Proud Mary again as an example. It's kind of like I see that as an institution of like that scene. Yeah. And I'm not suggesting we are an institution, but it's like it's something we would aspire to be. But it's like I think that's you want to get to that point with your cafe experience where it's like when you go into Edinburgh, it's like a tick box. So that's like something you want to check it out.
Yeah.
And for me, Proud Mary's was always that.
Yeah.
And there's other examples in other cities, like 3FE in Dublin or plenty in other cities. But
I think that balance between being a really established brand that people know of, while also when they come into the cafe, the experience is one of like personability and feeling welcome. That's like probably the perfect ultimate balance to strike, really. I think.
But also, I guess the caveat to that would be my next point, which is like we don't want to be resting on our laurels. Like, we've been going for 10 years. We don't want to be serving the same experience in 2014 when we opened as we're trying to do now. And like one of our pillars of our culture is like progressiveness. And I think, that is, we're a young team. We're a young business. Like 10 years, one side I'm like, we've got loads of heritage, we're an institution. The other side I'm like, we're really young.
That's a long time. I mean, like it's hard to run a business for a long time, especially in hospitality. But even like sometimes I see like Anna, our operations manager, she's sent through some of the older menus you guys have had, and like even looking at how the branding has changed over time, and it does give you that sense of like it's a business or a company that's been through so many iterations and I only came into it last year, and so when you do see stuff from the past, you're like, wow, this has been going for a while, and it kind of has sometimes when you work somewhere, it's hard to imagine it before you were there. But I think it definitely feels, or like you guys have those old guilty pleasure bags with the little those ones there. When are they from?
Not. Oh,
they've got like old, for those listening, there's old guilty pleasure bags with little like sweets on them and stuff. But that's so cool to see innovation happening and how you've tried new things, and like I think always trying to like improve things and make things good and better. And
I think what's nice for me is like that comes as a result of like the people shaping, like it's being molded constantly to its benefit. The business was not great when it started, and it's got incrementally better because I've been quite open arms to change, and I think that it's not an easy thing to do. I think some people struggle with that; they don't really want change. And I think we've kind of made it a purposeful mission to like not accept that we're great. Like it's like always be questioning how can things be better. Yeah, probably quite hard for staff maybe to deal with that constant rotating, but don't want to have a business that sits still. I want it always to be getting better. So it's like we constantly want to be challenging our team to be engaging with that, which is...
But I think that makes it a more like interesting place to work, and it gives you a sense of, if you're always trying to improve and change, I think that gives you a sense of like purpose, really. Because I think as soon as you start to feel bored at work, that's when it's sort of like, that can be really frustrating. Whereas I think if you're always inspired to, you know, continue improving, I think that's allows you to keep caring. I think, you know, so at least in my experience. So,
wow.
Yeah. Was that everything? Yeah. I don't have any. Whoa.
There we go.
I was like, because I thought we were having the other we've got another thing we're talking about. And I was like, we're going to have to go way over time. No, it's fine.
No, that was the timer in case you didn't realise.
Slay.
So that is the end of that podcast. I'm very interested in that. Like, obviously, we always want to try and create an environment which is unique to our customers, and it's hard. It's always hard. We tried very hard to make Frederick Street a very unique experience, and you know, sometimes you need to be prepared to evolve that if it's not. If it doesn't match. So you can't just be like unique, you also have to be a business that succeeds. Anyway, thank you very much for listening.
Thanks for having me on.
Not at all. It's been a pleasure, not a chore.
Good. That sounded sincere.
I wasn't it. No, it's very interesting. And we're going to get lots of views on this one because you're going to share it on your podcast, and it's going to be great. We're going to do do a cross promotion.
That's the only reason I'm on here.
That's my big thing at the moment. If you have liked it, or if you've got if you've liked it, let's go stick with that. And don't subscribe, that's please. All. But if you want to comment and ask us questions, I'm going to get better at responding to them on YouTube. And yeah, let us know what your thoughts are, and share it with some peeps if you think they'd find it valuable. But for now, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.